but they got something wrong. And Barry whacked the piano like that, bang. Because the piano was mic'd up, it kind of went like that. It was massive, everybody went, no. And we went, ah. Yeah, he said, without the chemo, you probably got about 65% chance of being here in a couple of years. Oh. And I was kind of going, and I said, well, and with it? And he said, well, with it, you're probably up to about like 85, 80, something like that. Like when someone's saying it like that, in that blunt, those terms, you kind of go, wow, this is more serious than I thought.
So welcome to the Cognitas Global Podcast this week. I'm pleased to introduce somebody that I say loosely known because I've appreciated his music for the last 30 years, Mr. Phil Veacock, tenor sax, the orchestra leader, musical arranger for Mr. Jools Holland and his big band with Rhythm and Blues Orchestra to give its correct title.
Yes, the correct title, yes.
Phil, ordinarily I'd never have anything written down, but when I researched you, I looked at the scope of your career and the career that obviously I've followed very closely because I've been coming to all the gigs and listening to all the music and buying all the albums and all that. There's a massive amount. So I'm actually going to refer to my View 360 Global notepad here with all my research written on.
Absolutely.
Mr. Veacock. High Wycombe, 1964, a memorable occasion for your parents there.
Yes, indeed.
Where you were born. The first note that I saw actually was that your musical career started off with a recorder at school.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I was at primary school and there was, in those days, I think everybody kind of, there seemed to be a thing where you had to sort of learn to play the recorder. I don't know if you had the same, you had the same thing. Yeah. But for some reason, I really took to it. And I loved playing the recorder and became like very good at it. And to the extent that there was about 5 or 6 of us who were chosen to kind of be like a sort of recorder backing band for the school assemblies. Right? So the teacher would play the piano, and there'd be like 5 or 6 of us playing the recorders for the sort of hymns that everyone had to sing for the school assemblies every morning. And I think that kind of coloured my sort of worldview. Because instead of having to kind of sort of sit on the horrible old sort of gym floor where everyone had to sit in all the sort of dust and grime, we got to sit on like a chair and like sort of look down on all the kind of poor people that were that weren't virtuoso recorder players. And then we would it sort of gave me like a sort of privileged position over on this kind of semi-bandstand thing.
Well, I think, again, you're being rather modest, as I know you are a very modest character, because I have a note that you were even playing with your nose at one stage.
Yes, I sort of decided that just playing it just normally wasn't quite enough. So we'd like experiment with like kind of like, how else could you make a noise? Obviously, one of the ways was by blowing through your nose, which is like, obviously, when you're kind of 6 or 7 or whatever it is, it's a bit revolting.
Well, clearly that your recorder playing was of great benefit for you. It absolutely didn't take my musical career any further. But just moving on, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but it's important, I think, because there's going to be lots of people watching this, I hope, they're interested in music, your musical career, how you sort of matured through that. Yeah. Clarinet was the next thing.
Well, yeah, so because I was a competent recorderist, my parents, I think they sort of thought, well, he's obviously kind of likes doing that sort of thing. So, and there was... and they got me a clarinet. I don't know quite why it was a clarinet. That was a bit random. But there was, because the RAF Central Band was based at Uxbridge, which is very near to High Wycombe. And a lot of the bandsmen would pick up work as teaching in the kind of that general area. And one of the guy that I went to for my lessons was a fantastic guy called Bill Watson, who taught me the clarinet. And he ran lots of other bands. He ran like sort of dance bands that he'd go out and do gigs and like sort of pay at parties and stuff. He got me into kind of some local sort of youth bands and stuff like that. And then from that, he sort of recommended that I started playing the saxophone. He was the person that kind of canvassed my parents and said, I think he'd be good playing the saxophone.
And you were reading music as well, I take it.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And I'd kind of done my grades on the clarinet and all that sort of thing, you know. And gradually, you know, as you go through school, you kind of get a bit better, don't you? And you work at it and all that sort of thing. But then I got my saxophone, because what I noticed was when I watched Top of the Pops and things like that none of the bands had clarinets in them. But a lot of the bands did have saxophones in them, right? And I thought, well, actually, that's probably a lot cooler. And also, the ladies seem to like the saxophone. Yeah. Everyone that you kind of, all the girls that I knew went, oh, yeah, saxophone's really great. Oh, it's very sexy. Yeah. It's great. So I thought, okay, I'm onto something here.
Sexy saxophone player.
Sexy saxophone
I can't think of anything for the clarinet.
No, exactly. I think there was Supertramp had a clarinet in it. That was the only thing that, and I was thinking, well, I don't really like them. So yeah, that was the kind of my first, when I got the saxophone.
And would this have been when you extended into the Wordy Weebles, Wowdy Weebles,
Wowdy Webbles,
the Wowdy Webbles. Sorry,
because it was at the time when Life of Brian came out, and I don't remember there's that very famous scene where he's talking about his friend in Wome who wanks as highly as any in Wome. He's called Biggest Dickus, I think. And
that's the one.
It's not like you to be outwitted by a band of Wowdy Webbles. And we thought Wowdy Webbles at the time. We thought it was hilarious. That would be a great name for a band. Of course, it's not. It's a terrible name. But that's
hence why you never got on Top of the Pops.
Yeah,
the Wowdy Webbles.
I think so. Yeah, but the Wowdy Webbles did their job. You know, we played at parties like Bill Watson's bands did, and that was good. And then I went to college, and joined a band called the Larks, and they'd only just formed about a term earlier, and they were looking to kind of make the brass section bigger, and I was sharing a house with a trumpet player called Peter Cook. And so because we were kind of, we sort of worked a lot together, we were kind of a package, the trumpet and the saxophone. So they kind of got both of us in to kind of, to do that.
But split between punk and funk.
Yeah, well, because the Larks, essentially it was two blokes, one of whom loved punk rock and the other one that really, really loved funk. James Brown and like kind of heavy funk. And the kind of collision of those two sort of styles was really what the Larks was all about. And it kind of worked really, really well. And we kind of wrote our own songs, obviously, because that's quite a sort of diverse thing. So the two things had to kind of be put together by them.
But you had success.
Yeah. Because when we left college, and none of us, it was at the time, you know, in the sort of mid '80s, and there was no jobs really. So we just kind of thought, well, we'll kind of do the band and see what happens. And we were doing pretty well, and we got quite a lot of gigs, and everyone seemed to like the noise we made. And one of the kind of key things was that we kind of played a lot, because I don't think this really exists anymore. Where we would go round and play in student unions or like universities for the kind of college balls, but also just playing gigs. Because every week that at the kind of universities and colleges in the student union, they put bands on. Yeah. And I don't think they do that anymore. I think that's kind of a thing that's died out, really. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be a thing.
Well, I never went to university, and I've got to say, I probably... when my daughter was there, I don't really hear, she likes music, but she didn't really ever say that used to go on a lot. So you're probably right, actually, thinking about it.
But you could make quite a good living just going around doing that. And because we kind of appealed to quite a sort of lively act and quite political, that chimed with what the kind of all the students were thinking, we were kind of very popular on that circuit, and because of that, we were quite often chosen to play at their college balls, which were much more lucrative, like the kind of end of year, the May ball, you know. And I think there was one night where we did 5 Oxford balls in one night. Like,
really?
So, yeah, just went from college to college to college, like just doing like.
But you charted as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and we recorded some stuff, and we got on the telly, and we got in the charts. Yeah. And it was all going really quite well, but we had the thing where we were sort of a bit out of our time, in the sense that at that point it was all kind of gloomy, sort of doomy, sort of navel-gazing sort of indie pop. And we were kind of fun and lively and breezy and jumping about. And that wasn't really kind of what people were at that point.
I sense that, those times hold real fond memories for you, because I know on your Facebook, you know, there's always lots of references to the Larks.
Mark, who's the guitarist in the band, he's like he's a kind of it's Bill Wyman, isn't it, who was the archivist for the Rolling Stones, I think, and Mark is the kind of archivist, and he kind of keeps it alive, really. But there's a lot of stuff on Spotify and Apple Music. You can see there's like some live shows, so you can hear what we sounded like.
Will they ever reunite the Larks?
We last year, hang on, what was it? This year? I don't know. It might have been earlier this year. We released some new tracks that we recorded, but we recorded all our bits separately and put them all together. And we did 2 tracks, and one of them sounded absolutely appalling, and one of them, Mark's brother kind of remixed it, and it sounds quite good. So we're quite happy with that, and we thought that was quite successful, so we thought we might kind of do some more of that. Because for a long time, we kind of didn't, we sort of lost track of a couple of members. And we used to sort of keep meeting up and going for drinks and stuff. It's a really interesting thing, actually. So some of us would meet up and, you know, go for curries and drinks and stuff like that. And then fairly recently, just before lockdown, we kind of, all of us got back in touch, and we all met up. And all of a sudden, it was really odd, because it was like all of the bits of the jigsaw were back in place, and the whole thing sort of worked again. Do you know what I mean? It's like really odd how like just 1 or 2 people not being there.
Like you'd never been away.
Yeah, and it was. We always used to say it was a bit like sort of being in the army, where it was like a sort of, they were like your brothers, and we were kind of very, very, very close. Because if you're driving around the country. I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever had that same sort of thing, but when you're in close proximity with people for a long period of time, like can either go that you end up wanting to kill them, or it can end up that you actually kind of love them like a brother, sure. You know. And that's kind of what we were like. We kind of, it was like a sort of army unit, you know. It's like, I think that's why it worked so well.
And then what happened in the end for that?
People, you know, people change, don't they? I suppose people kind of, you know, people wanted to do other stuff, and sure. That's kind of really what happened. So at the end of that, I was when the Larks kind of, it didn't seem it was going to go anywhere. I was kind of still thinking, well, I don't really quite know what to do now. And I'd done at college, my degree had been in film and music, as joint honours. I thought, well, I would sort of try and get some jobs in the film business. And so I was sort of starting to kind of do jobs as a runner in the film business. So I started working on a training film for Marks and Spencers and things like that. You know, just thinking, I don't really want to do this. I'd much rather play. And at that point, I was doing gigs. I was living in South East London and doing gigs around and about. And one of the things that I got involved in was this sort of mad new big band that's called the Deptford Dance Orchestra, which had been formed by 2 blokes from Goldsmiths who were called Paul Bartholomew and Roger Goslin, and some other people that they knew. And it just sort of started off, and it was just sort of a bit of a laugh, and it was quite sort of funny, sort of, you know, lots of bits of different sorts of music, and, you know, it was quite eclectic. And we were doing a gig in a pub in Deptford called the Royal Albert, which is still there. And Ronnie Burrow, also known as Ronnie Box, who was Jools' sound engineer at the time, he brought Jools along, because Jools was interested in that sort of thing, and he brought Jools along to kind of see. He said, come and see this crazy new big band that's playing. They're quite a laugh. And brought Jools along. And Jools, as luck would have it, he was recording his first solo album, Just Left Squeeze, and he was recording his first solo album, which became World of His Own. And he needed some brass to go on it. And he asked me, and he asked a couple of the others, could we come up and record this tune? So we went up and recorded the tune. And that went well. And then I think it felt like it was about a week later. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it was a lot longer. But Jools was appearing on Terry Wogan had a chat show at the time.
Yeah.
It was on every night. Yeah. And Jools was going on that to play a song called Holy Cow. And we hadn't recorded the brass on that. But he needed some people to pretend that they were playing the brass on it. So he said, can you guys come and do that? So we went and did that. And then the next thing was he was going to Edinburgh to the festival. And he said, look, if you guys can come and if you can get there, can't pay you any money, but, there's gigs and we'll pay you for the gigs, but I can't, only be like sort of 50 quid or something, but, it'll be a laugh. And of course, when you're that age, you kind of go, okay, that's a good. No, not thinking, actually, I want some proper money, thanks. But no, we just kind of went, that's great. And Roger, who he had a friend who was doing a play in the Fringe Festival, who had hired a house, and so we all just kind of stayed in this house. And I think that there must have been over 100 people staying at this house. I mean, it was insane. You just like sort of virtually queue up to find a little bit of like floor to kind of go to sleep on, Well, people just everywhere. Whenever you went in, there was bodies everywhere, just.
Well, that reminds me of a story I know we were speaking earlier on because this is like 1988, 89, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
At that time, I was in the police. I was a young detective constable, and Greenwich was my first posting where I stayed for 5 years.
Right.
And I met Jools, actually, who had his studio there, and he lived very close by. As
over the road.
Still got his studio there. Because I'd been a big Squeeze fan anyway, and I'd seen Jools and the Millionaires and all this sort of stuff. And I got the courage to go and see if he would maybe make a contribution to a prize for our annual CID Christmas parties.
Okay,
You could never have those type of parties in this day and age because of the way we all arranged it and the contributions from all the publicans. And then they all got tickets, they all came along and everything was free. And it was and we raised money for charity.
Yeah.
And actually, he was a great support because he would come down regularly and maybe draw the raffle or make an appearance and this sort of stuff and contribute. And he was great. But I remember after one gig that you did in Malcolm Hardy's place up the creek in Greenwich, the band went back to Jools' house. Everybody was there. Everybody was like swapping instruments and playing different instruments and getting drunk and all the rest of it. And I was there. Actually, I was on duty as night duty CID at that stage. And I was sort of there. Did you keep
quiet about that?
Staying sober, but with my, obviously, mindful of that I might have gone anywhere else. And throughout the night, I think it's about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, like Roger had fallen asleep under the piano, having drank quite a few. And I gathered these bodies up, put them all into the back of the CID car, and then drove around South London, depositing people at various locations in their houses, dropping them off. As opposed to back.
I don't think much has changed, really.
I suspect not. We've all got a bit older and greyer. But, so I remember those times, vividly as well. And of course, you then, we've a nice intro into you becoming an established part of Jools' band. Moving on for, I guess, nearly 30 years, is it?
Yes. After we came back from Edinburgh, I think there was a little tour of the South Coast and we went and did that and we all kind of just went in one car and rehearsed our our parts on the way and we played on about half the set. And then gradually, as things went on, there was more tours and there was a bit more money available and we became like part of the whole thing of it.
But how many were you at that stage?
So there was only 4 brass at that point, 2 saxes, a trombone and a trumpet. And it was one of those things where it's like sort of going downhill and more and more sort of people gathered sort of like it achieved critical mass. But I think what happened was we met Rico. Rico came and
Rico Rodriguez, the trombone player.
So he became part of it, and then we did a TV show called Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, with Chris Evans. We did a few series. I can't remember how many series it was, 2 or 3, I can't remember. Which was marvellous business because it was very lucrative, and we all managed to buy houses as a result of that. But it was at that time when like TV companies it was new TV companies, B Sky B and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And there was like a lot of money around, and fortunately we benefited from that, so that was jolly good. But at points in doing that, we got more people in to boost. There was various artists who would come on, and we would play with them. For example, Roy Wood from Wizard, who required a big, like a big band really, and we kind of boosted the section from that. And it was at that time as well that Jools he'd started doing later. And occasionally we would get asked, because what would happen was they'd get people, guests from America would come over, quite often at short notice, so they couldn't always get visas for their musicians to come and do it. So quite often we'd get asked to come and sort of play with these people, which was marvellous, fantastic for us. Excuse me. And that had gone on, I think, maybe a year or 2 years of doing that. But then the BBC decided that they wanted a New Year's Eve show. And that was the birth of the Hootenanny. And it was, I think the first one was Christmas, New Year, 93, going into 94. Wow. I think that was the first one. And Jools said, what I want to do is have like a big band. That's going to be the house band. Yeah. And so because obviously we sort of knew lots of people that we could sort of bring in to do that. So we kind of got in some people to do it. But obviously once you start having a lot of people, suddenly the music has to be really tightly arranged, because you can't have that many people all just sort of randomly sort of blowing and playing things. So it has to be kind of arranged. And that's when my job sort of got invented, which was that, okay, so we need someone to sort of coordinate doing that, who can sort of arrange the music.
And had you been trained in that previously?
Yeah, well, yes, I sort of knew, I knew what I was doing, having done a music degree. So I sort of knew what was required. I was a bit scared, but yes. And so suddenly I've got to arrange Walking on the Moon for Sting, and I'm sort of thinking, oh no, and he said, yeah, could you do it a little bit like Charles Mingus? I want like a kind of Charles Mingus sort of vibe. So, okay, so you want me to do Walking on the Moon by Sting in the style of Charles Mingus, and it's going to be on the telly. Okay.
I know just the man who could do that.
Yeah.
And I guess we should contextualise actually the task and what you've achieved, because this isn't just like, one or two little arrangements. You've been arranging music for Jools for all of those years.
Sure.
You have been the main man on the left, playing your tenor sax in the band, arranging the music for some of the most biggest iconic superstars, musical stars in the world. I mean, I go back and remember seeing you. I mean, I used to go to all the Hootenannies, all the later programs. Yeah. We were talking earlier on about, REM, Elton John, Robbie Williams. I mean, just amongst many hundreds of groups.
That's right, yes.
Have you ever been a bit awestruck by any of that?
Definitely, yeah. Absolutely, definitely. And, it's a very difficult job because quite often the people who are coming on to play with Jools and a big band, their music definitely doesn't require a big band. It's like a gentle, small thing that needs like very delicate handling. Yeah. And so the trick is to get everybody to play something, but not get in the way, and make it so that it detracts from the actual core of the thing, which is the person and their famous hits that they've, or hits that they've are performing. And that is often a very tall order indeed.
And how long would it take you to maybe arrange that? So you get a song, whether it's Sting or someone else, you know, how do
we
you go
don't get
about
long because we usually find out about a week before the show who's coming on and what song, and quite often right up till the last minute the songs aren't decided, or they kind of hum and ha about whether they're going to do that one or that one. And also quite often if they had a hit with that particular song 30 years ago, quite often their voices have changed since they recorded it, and it's now in a kind of very different key, and they've done it live in a different version, and there's like kind of lots of different versions, and you have to kind of establish exactly what it is that they kind of want. And quite often you don't have a direct contact with the artist, so quite often there's a kind of chain of, like, you know, you sort of do it by hearsay. Like, well, someone said that they do it like this now, but I'm not sure. And there's like this version that's on Spotify, but I'm not sure whether that's how they do it now, or whether there's that extra little bit at the end. And so you have to kind of be ready for all of those things.
And you're doing that for your orchestra, you know, the Rhythm and Blues Orchestra.
Yeah.
You're doing it for their band as well, I assume.
Well, no, generally they just, generally we just have like sort of people singing, and occasionally they might have one or two other members of the, if it's a band, you know, they might have one or two other people. But yeah, I mean, I must stress as well that it isn't just me that does it now. We've got, in the first instance, it sort of was, but now we've got, because the band is absolutely crammed with fantastic arrangers now. I mean, there's like, you know, there's about sort of 7 or 8 people who are absolutely world-class arrangers.
Fighting for the jobs?
Yeah, fighting for the jobs. And when it comes to handing out the arrangements, we call it Gallet Night, because people are going, I'll do that one, I'll do that one, I'll do that one, because everyone wants to kind of do get the arrangements, you know, that they want. But it usually works out. It's usually fine, you know. Yeah,
that's great. And tell me, I mean, who have been? I mean, you will have your own iconic figures.
Yes,
people that you have probably has been a dream to play for.
Yes.
Who have they been for you?
That's a very good question. Because I'm a big sort of soul person. So a lot of them have been the sort of big soul artists, like Al Green, for example. I loved playing with Al Green, and he was very funny. He when he arrived, he came into the studio and he pretended for quite a long time to have had like some sort of terrible sort of stroke and be unable to kind of really sort of walk properly, and he's going like that. And we're all kind of going, okay, Al, so we're going to just run the song. And he went, I got you. and we all just kind of went, all right. It's just Al's strange sense of humour. And of course he was fine, you know. Yeah. But that was just his little joke, which was quite weird. So Al Green, Barry White, he was fantastic. I always say he was like, when you're a kid, how you imagine God to be. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He was massive. Yeah. He was a huge guy. Yeah. And wide. And he turned up, it was one of the hottest days of the year. And he turned up wearing this massive black overcoat, sweating like, we got in like a big string section. Obviously, for Barry White's sound, he needs like a big sort of string section. And there was a point where it actually wasn't my fault. It was his musical director's fault, but she was there. But they got something wrong, and Barry White was standing right by Jools' piano, and it had gone wrong. And Barry whacked the piano like that. Bang! And his hand was the sort of size of a sort of frying pan, and he just whacked. And because the piano was mic'd up, it kind of went like that. And the massive everybody went, no. And we went, ah! So the voice of God, you know. It was beautiful. He was fantastic. He was really great.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to some Barry White and the car the other day, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Just amazing. Reminiscing about some of the great stuff that he did, you know.
And of course, Amy Winehouse was amazing. She came on a few times, and I think the last time she came on was with Paul Weller, and that was a very special
I remember seeing her a few times actually. In fact, I saw her at Glastonbury quite a lot, and it was quite sad in the end. Actually, I felt she was probably being exploited a bit there, which it was very sad to see her decline. Really, but an immense talent. I mean, I can't even think over the years. I mean, I've seen so many people and just been, as a big music fan, let alone playing with them, just to see them, in a studio. These people that, and the great thing about later, I thought, was always that you get to see these people in the studio, whereas, and a diverse and different number of people, all at the, all in the same show.
Sure.
Whereas, you'd never get to see them in concert.
No,
even if you could afford to pay
and also
nowadays,
playing, doing things together. I mean, we had one, because Smokey Robinson came on, and for some reason, I think Mark, the guitarist, wasn't there. For some reason, I can't remember, he couldn't make it. And so Jools phoned up Eric Clapton to come and sort of dep for Mark. So there's like Eric Clapton and Smokey Robinson, and like he's sort of thinking, this is like insane, It's like, when would you get that?
And who would you say has been the most consummate musician that you've ever had the pleasure of playing with?
That's
or
very, very
with?
difficult. It's very difficult. Very hard.
Apart from the boss himself, of course.
Oh, yeah, obviously Jools. There's been so many. I mean, Clapton would probably be like quite a good example. I mean, he literally everything he plays is beautiful. I mean, it's extraordinary. Just sort of all of his lines that he plays are just lovely. You just take him in isolation and just like really, really lovely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, Jeff Beck was amazing. I was stood next to him. He did this solo. He was very, very loud. I would say that, but he did this. It was a slow blues that he was playing on. And there was a bit where he kind of played a note and then he kind of whacked the guitar with his hand and it went whee up about 2 octaves to like in the perfect harmonic. And it's like such control over this instrument, It's absolutely amazing. But loads of, hundreds and hundreds of moments like that from all
over 30 years or certainly over the time later's been playing.
When you watch people and you just go, it's amazing, it is great.
And look, you're out on the road all the time now. Jools is still touring all the time, still filling up all the venues. What motivates you as a musician to stay on the road?
Well,
apart from obviously money and a job, it's got to be more.
There's that famous story of Duke Ellington being interviewed by Humphrey Littleton. Have you seen that interview?
No.
It's an old black and white interview, and Humphrey Littleton says, "Now, Duke, you've had the same band. You're famous for having the same musicians in your band for 30 years. I mean, what's your secret for keeping people?" And he says, "It's very simple, Humphrey." He says, "I pay them money."
I'm sure it's just not money for you.
No. Well, as you know, I've been very ill the last year. I had bowel cancer, and suddenly I was unable to do it. I was unable to, I was ill when I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything. And then when I was sort of getting a bit better, when I was improving, getting back to playing is massively therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I did have it's quite odd because I did have a bit of a sort of psychological block because I thought, for some reason, I had this kind of thing where I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to be able to do it when I go back to doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that, but I did. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to play and I'm just going to not. So I haven't played for sort of 2 months or something, And of course, as soon as you start doing it, you sort of it's like riding a bike, you get back on, sort of start doing it and it's all fun.
And maybe we'll deal with that actually a little bit more. I just want to ask you about a couple of things. Well, let me ask you, I've got to ask you the question, because I know, probably for me, he's one of the, nicest blokes I think I've ever met, Jools. but as a man to work for, clearly, I mean, you wouldn't work for him if he wasn't.
Yes, indeed.
And he didn't pay you money.
Yes,
But,
true.
I mean, the fact that you never see anything, no adverse press and all that sort of stuff, I think is an indication of the man himself. You know,
Yeah.
I know he's a family man, private man, but, you know, still very, very popular with the masses as for me, you know, absolute consummate musician.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, 16, 17, 18 albums later, it must be, you know,
churns them out.
still turning them out. But let me just deal with a couple of other things, because obviously you just don't play with Jools. You've got your own, your 3-piece Deptford Rivieras, which I've been to see many times and continue to play that. And in fact, I've even lumped your gear.
Like, you have. You've been
upstairs as a roadie for you, on occasions.
Very good.
Much
very
to the
well
detriment
done.
of my knees and my back.
I was going to say, because you weren't completely 100% yourself.
I'd had a knee operation, and doing you a favour.
Very, very welcome indeed. That was.
But you play in this great trio of very talented people. Some really good jazz stuff.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we're going to do some cut-ins on this for you, and we'll put some of the music on.
Okay.
But you still get a lot of fun and enjoyment out of that.
Definitely, yes, absolutely, yeah. It's good. It's and the sort of basis for that really was to try and do a band where it was sort of cut right down to sort of because it's so expensive to kind of put a band on nowadays.
Yeah.
To pay all the musicians. So my idea was to kind of only have 3 of us, because then you would maximise your resources, as it were.
Well, 3-way split the money is better than a 4-way split the money as well.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why because Gary plays all the bass parts on it with his Hammond organ. For people that don't know, Hammond organ has like bass pedals. So he plays the bass part with the pedals with his feet, and then he plays the chords and everything else with his hands up here. So we don't have a bass player. We just have like the bass pedals. And
you don't have to pay him twice then for his feet and his hands.
No, although he does quite often complain about the ULEZ charge. We have to pay him for that.
And I should say, this isn't really a funny story, but I recall that doesn't your drummer have the propensity to have a heart attack now and again on stage or something like that?
No, he hasn't. I don't think he's ever had a heart attack. He had cancer as well,
right,
Alan, and he's beaten it.
But he had a couple of wobbly moments, didn't he? On I think there was
he did. Yeah,
when I was doing my roading for you, I think a couple of stories.
He did. He's recently had some sort of thing, but we're all getting old. You see,
tell me about it. Yeah,
we're all getting old.
Mez and The Fezzes, another fantastic group that you play for as well. Great fun group. I mean, tell me a little bit about those, the constituent parts.
Yes, well, it's formed by Mez Clough and myself. Mez is a drummer and percussionist, and he, for quite a while, was the drummer for Van Morrison. And now, I think he's left Van now, and he now does percussion for Madness. And the Mez and The Fezzes have like quite a big allegiance with Madness, and because Mark Bedford, who's the bass player in Madness, he's also the bass player in Mez and The Fezzes, and also Joe Auckland, who plays trumpet with us, he's the trumpet player in Madness. And so, there's quite a sort of crossover between ourselves and the Nutty
An
Boys.
all-star band.
An all-star band. And we
playing in fezzes, of course.
Wearing fezzes, which, of course, Madness have been known to do. And the other, last week, we did a gig down in Shoreham, and Lee Thompson from Madness, the sax player in Madness, he came along and sang a song with us, and we refer to him as the Fez Father. Yeah. Suggs came and sang a song with us at one point, a while ago.
And it's great, I've got to say, huge fun.
It's kind of surfy sort of rock and roll. It's just a bit of ska, a bit of sort of our rock and roll, bit of rhythm and blues. It's lots of different
mix of
stuff.
genres.
Yeah. But
and it is great. It is great fun. And as I say, we'll put some stuff up and hopefully increase your following.
well, yes,
Who
hope
knows?
so. Yes.
If by at least one or two, including my videographer. So let me I'll move forward a little bit. Obviously, COVID hit you and the band.
Yes.
You then became the fastest artisan bread delivery driver.
Yes.
in
Well,
Greenwich,
that was the thing. So that's a weird story. So my friend and I, my friend Simon and I, we started. This was before COVID and the lockdown. Quite a couple of years before, we started making bread. And the reason why we started was because there was a load of dads at the primary school where my daughters went, and the dads would all go to the pub and sort of have a drink. And we kind of were talking about it one night in the pub and saying, well, this is all very well, but it's not, why don't we try and do something a bit more kind of useful than just going to the pub and getting trashed. And someone suggested...
Oh, get in the kitchen.
There was a new place had opened near us where they did like a bread making thing for a night, and you could take your own drink, and it was basically like going to the pub, but you learned to make bread as well. So we all went and did that, and it was a right laugh. It was great. We really enjoyed it. It was good fun. And so then there was and the second one was like a sort of more advanced thing. So we all did that as well. Blokes being blokes, we all started sort of making bread at each other. So like sort of competitive, but who can bake the sort of most elaborate, sort of most advanced bread, So people were doing sourdough stuff and this, that, and the other, and seeds and all kinds of things. And then gradually everyone sort of fell away, and it was just myself and Simon. And obviously because we're making quite a lot of bread, we go, what are we going to do? You can't eat all this bread. So we started to sort of, people would say, oh, can we buy a loaf off you? So we started sort of selling it locally. And Simon, at the time, he was a carpenter, and he sort of decided he didn't really like being a carpenter, but what he did like doing was making the bread. So what he did was he built in his garden like a kind of a bakery, essentially. He built like a sort of a big sort of shed, and he filled it with 3 industrial ovens and... all sorts of, workstations and that. And he started doing it really properly, and sort of, getting up at 3 a.m. to make the croissants and the all of that stuff.
And he couldn't entice you away from...
Well, the thing was, I sort of kept up a little bit, and we kind of supplied, there was like a few sort of delis and places where we started supplying them. But then I realised that actually I can't do this. I've actually got a job that I quite like, and I don't want to sort of be a baker really. So I said, look, you carry on, I'm out, basically. And then it was lockdown, and it had taken off quite a lot for him. He was doing really well. And because it was lockdown, people were loath to sort of go to the shops and all that sort of thing. So, but they were ordering bread and croissants and cakes and pastries and stuff from Simon. And he said, I haven't got time to kind of to make the stuff and deliver it. Why don't you be the delivery person? Because obviously there's no gigs. So I became a bread delivery man. So it was a great job. I loved it. We got like a little electric van, and I'd potter around like delivering croissants to people. And of course, people loved it because it was like, you turn up and you've got beautiful, delicious bread and croissants home.
Being delivered by Jools' Orchestra.
That's right. Well, in fact, I did have one bloke sort of say, hang on, I saw you on the telly. You were on the telly last night. And I was going, oh, yeah, I might have been, yeah.
Well, it's a strange old life, isn't it, really, what we do. But obviously, your musical genes have passed on through the family.
Yes.
Your daughter Daisy
she's doing well,
is now doing really well.
She is,
played at Glastonbury. Tell me a little bit about her rise to
she
stardom.
She just always loved playing. She always come to gigs with me when she was little, and it's very funny because she. There was one tour when she was very little where Lulu was the guest, and Daisy really took to her and called her Auntie Lulu, and like would sort of go, "I want to see Auntie Lulu," and like would go and hang out with Auntie Lulu. And then recently Daisy was doing support for Jools on the tour, and Lulu was the guest again, you know.
Wow.
And all of the lads were kind of going, "Well, who is she?" And she's going, "It's Auntie Lulu." And they all thought that she actually was Daisy's auntie. It was going, "It's Lulu. She was, you know, man with a golden gun, you know."
I remember
Eurovision.
All the little kids. When we used to go to Rochester Castle, I used to bring my little daughter Sarah, and all the kids were running around the back and all trying to steal money off us for ice creams and all the rest of it. But fun days they were. But she's doing really well now.
Yes,
as a musician in her own right.
She went to the Brit School. She's doing really well. Yeah, she's got her own band, who are great. They're really good. She's now got a very good agency deal, and she's got a good manager, and she's got a publishing deal, and it's looking like she might have a record deal. We're not quite sure yet. She's been supporting Jools. She's done quite a few supports for Jools, including the Albert Hall last year, which was amazing.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
You must have been a very proud dad.
I was, well, especially because I couldn't do that gig. I was there, but I couldn't play because I was still really ill.
What does it really mean to see your daughter on stage?
It was amazing.
Like that?
It was absolutely amazing.
How emotional must that be?
And also because it was firstly because it's the Albert Hall, which is an amazing venue.
Yeah.
Really powerful place. But secondly, it was her name on the kind of big banner behind the band, and it's all her songs. They're only playing her songs. The band are her band that she's chosen, and they're she's the person at the front, kind of
incredible.
giving. It was amazing to witness. Yeah, it's very you can't really sort of describe how good that is. Really
I can imagine, and emotions obviously have played a big part in your life over the last year, because roughly a year ago, you got some devastating news.
Yes,
that you had bowel cancer.
That's right. Yeah.
How did that? Not the lead up to it, but how did that? I mean, tell me about the impact and the effects on you. I mean, other people will be going through.
Well,
this.
I didn't have any idea. I had no symptoms at all, and the only way that I found out was that I got sent an email. Saying you are now an old git, you need to kind of we do this screening thing, and send off for this kit. Yeah. So I sent off for the kit. I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I sent off for the kit, suspecting nothing. So, did this little sample thing, sent it off. And it came back and they said, well, that doesn't look very good. We need to get you in to have a closer look. I won't go into details, but they had a closer look and they found a tumour in my bowel.
Wow.
And I could tell, because there was about 3 or 4 people in the room, and it was all kind of quite jolly. And then the atmosphere completely changed. It was really weird. It just went, and I knew that something was up at that point, and they sort of said, yeah, you see that there, that's like a tumour, it's cancer. So they said, we'll have to operate. They said, we found it quite early, so it's not, it should be all right.
But it must still be smacked around the head with a shovel or something.
Yeah, well, you suddenly go, wow, I've got cancer. It's like,
And are you taking anything in beyond that initial sentence that you've got cancer? After that, does it all become a bit of a, are you cognizant of what's happening and what that means? And
Well, they said it was all happened quite quickly because they said we'll need to whip that out straight away. So straight away we were kind of right. The operations, we're going to operate on this, get it out quick as we can. So there wasn't that much time to kind of worry about it, but it was really weird having to sort of then tell people, this is happened. I've got this thing, because also you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
No.
That's the thing. I think I'm quite sort of optimistic because there wasn't when we were sort of was going through it. There was not no one was going, oh, it's like really bad. You've only got sort of this much time to live, and it wasn't any of that. It was all kind of, don't worry, it's early days, you can operate and get it out, it's all fine, right? And then there was a sort of slight complication. So they did the surgery and they said, well, there's a little bit of cancer still that we haven't managed to get that's in there, so we need to give you chemotherapy. But then there was a problem with my kidneys, because my kidneys weren't working very well. And it turned out to be because there's some medication that I'd been taking before. And there's a window after you've had the surgery. You can only, it's up to, I can't remember how long, it's like sort of 2 months or something like that, 3 months maybe, where if you don't start the chemo in that period of time, then there's no point in having it because it doesn't have any effect.
Right.
So it was sort of, and because my kidneys weren't okay, they said, well, you can't have the chemo because it's your kidneys aren't up to it. You won't be able to kind of cope with it. So I was thinking, well, and then I saw the oncologist and he said, well, without the chemo, you probably got about 65% chance of being here in a couple of years. Oh. And I was kind of going, and I said, well, and with it? And he said, well, with it, you're probably up to about like 85, 80, something like that. And I said, like when someone's saying it like that, in that blunt, those terms, you kind of go, wow, this is, okay, this is like more serious than I thought. Yeah. But then I was thinking about it afterwards and I was thinking, well, actually, those kind of odds, that's probably what we all have anyway. As if we're being a certain age, the chances that you might sort of get run over by a bus or like, an anvil might fall on your head. You don't
really want those odds delivered in that.
No, but that's right. You don't really want to think about it, really.
No.
So anyway, at the very last minute, I had a kidney biopsy, which is really horrible. And I'd like to say to all of your viewers, if you get the chance to not have one, don't have one, because it really hurts. You had to, because they stick a needle into your kidney and grab a bit and pull it out again.
Yeah.
It's not nice. Even with an anaesthetic, it's not nice. And then you have to lie still for 6 hours, not move for 6 hours. That's quite hard. At the end of that, they said, actually, we think your kidneys are okay. They're not damaged. They're going to make a recovery, so we can give you the chemotherapy. So then I started having the chemotherapy, start of the year, and I've just finished it.
How many sessions did you have?
Good question. I think it was 12. But it was every other week, so you have to have a fortnight in between.
And having gone through that, how would you say you motivate yourself, or people would need to motivate themselves if they're going through that experience?
You have to sort of pace yourself, because what I found was that as I went on, it builds up in you. So by the end, I was feeling really sick. I felt sick pretty much all the time. And you have like drugs to sort of stop you from feeling sick, but even so, and you feel really knackered. But to begin with, it's like a walk in the park. It doesn't really affect you. But as you go on, by the end, you go, so that's done. And I had a scan recently and it came back there's no more cancer. So
That's fantastic
Yeah.
news. And just going back to what you said about your doubts about whether you could actually go back out and do what you've been doing for
Yes.
20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
Which was quite strange to rationalise, I guess,
Yes.
in your own mind.
Exactly. Well, it was a very weird thing. A sort of fear, that was like a big fear, you know. I just sort of thought, oh, well, maybe when I come back to do it again, I won't be able to do it. I don't know why I thought that, but it was definitely a thing, you know. It was definitely.
And I know you did some stuff with the Rivieras before you fall back into it.
Yeah,
Did that add to build your
That
confidence?
helps. No, that helps because the thing is with doing a Rivieras gig, I have to sort of run the night. So I'm like the MC, so I have to kind of be on top of it to kind of present it.
Yeah. Not carry the gear though, Phil.
Well, at that point, I wasn't able to. It was just it's a very good thing that you.
Needs to learn.
Yeah, it really definitely helped. But I had to know because once I'd done that, I knew that I was able to do it.
And now you're back on the road. You're at all the gigs. You're back into that rhythm.
Yeah.
Avoiding the pun. I tried to there, but you're back into that. You know.
Sure.
How's your life changed now? Where are you in that mental place now?
Oh, fine, absolutely fine. I'm looking forward to, because there was a point at which I had so many bits sort of stuck on me, various things, my PICC line and everything else for the chemo, that I felt like, I don't know if you remember that game when you're a kid called Buckaroo, where you like they'd sort of put
load
things
you
on
up
the
with
donkey,
stuff,
and gradually, and eventually the donkey just goes like that and kicks it. Well, I felt a bit like that, and so now gradually all the things are being taken away, and that's a really good thing because that's good. That's the ultimate thing, is when there's like no more bits stuck to me. That's going to be a glorious day when that happens.
Well, it's great to see you back.
Thank you.
To your old self, making great music, leading out from the front. Sad to see that your career as a delivery driver has gone into oblivion.
Well, yes, that's the bread delivery world's lost.
I feel that, Greenwich is lost, really, probably. But it's great, Phil, and also, the success Daisy is having as well.
Yes,
and seeing all of that, suddenly there's that big sun on the horizon, I guess, and you're seeing the woods for the trees through all of this now. I know you're not quite out of it, but
there's a few bits still to do, but it's looking pretty good. Yeah.
Well, you remember when you were going through this, I tried to maybe see if you fancied popping up with me to the Magic Circle.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I feel that we still haven't done it.
I'm looking forward to it.
And the offer's there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off with a little trick for you, Phil, to finish off this podcast.
I'm very much looking forward to this.
And you've probably seen there's been a wallet on the table and a pack of cards for a little while now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a trick that both shows mentalism and magic. Okay? Now, I have here I'm not going to say magic cards because they are just a shuffled deck of cards.
Okay.
But what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you just to just cut the deck anywhere you want, have a look at that card, and then put the card back. Now, you can show the camera if you want.
Okay, all right.
But actually, before you do that, I'm going to ask you, in fact, I'm going to ask the cameraman behind.
Oh, yeah.
Michael, I'm going to ask you, name any card out loud from anywhere in the deck.
8 of spades.
8 of spades. Okay, right, Phil. So this is going to be the mentalist part. I'm going to show you some magic first of all. So I just want you to cut the cards, as I say, just cut them, have a look at them, and then put the cards back on the top, yeah?
All right.
I'm going to look away in case you think that you can show the camera and then just put the cards back on top.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you how a magician would find your card, Phil, first of all, okay? We don't need the joker there. So, let me have a look. Let's see. Okay, right. I've got a sense that it could be this card, but this is the magic bit, Phil. Would that be your card by any chance?
That is, yeah.
The Queen of Spades?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, well, look. That's how a magician would find your card, right? But on this, in this wallet, is an envelope. This wallet's been here all the time.
It has, yeah.
And inside this, because I knew, Phil, even before I came here today, that you were going to pick one card, or I sensed that you were going to pick one card. And that card, in fact, is the Queen of Spades. Now, but hang on. This is not finished yet.
Okay, all right.
And this, I had hastened to add, this wasn't set up between me and Michael. You could have chosen any card you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, and you said the 8 of spades.
8 of spades, yeah.
And I, honestly, could I have known that you were going to choose that?
No.
And the only way I could have known that you were going to choose that is using my psychic powers.
Yes, absolutely.
And my thought-reading powers. I might have known beforehand that you were going to choose that. Because, look, actually, I wrote on the back before I came out, Michael, that you were going to choose the 8 of spades.
Whoa, fantastic.
Mr. Philip Veacock,
Thank you very much,
so much for being on
Thank you.
this.
That's amazing. Thank you.